So I titled this one Predictive Policing in a Quantum Society. I had intended on taking this matter of predictive policing, which people would probably better know as pre-crime, to the Mississauga General Committee, who said that this is more of a policing matter, even though policing is a general matter. And they had suggested I take things to either Peel Regional Council or the Peel Police. So Peel Region consists of Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon, and Mississauga is just west of Toronto. So when I had submitted this to Peel Regional Council, they had said that this is more of a policing matter. Then after submitting this to police, well, I had to shorten this to 5 minutes, so I retitled it Predictive Policing in the Mississauga Smart City, and took a whole lot of things out of it, basically anything that had to do with quantum computing that you'll see. And they had rejected it basically because nothing that was in this presentation was on their agenda. I had intended on presenting on April the 24th, but it turns out they released their agenda 2 days before the meeting. So with that in mind, and this being off topic for anything that they had planned in their meeting, I will keep my eyes open with Peel Police with regards to their meetings and see if there is anything in this presentation that ends up having to be mentioned in their meetings. Then I will gladly resubmit this and try again. But in the meantime, I'll be presenting this to you. So predictive policing in a quantum society. So predictive policing, more people will know as pre-crime, but it is one facet of the Biodigital Convergence, which we will get to. So you have the Creative Destruction Lab, which is part of UFT's Rotman School of Management. And essentially they deal with science and technology-based companies. And also the Creative Destruction Lab is financed by the Federal Development Agency of Canada, FedDev. And FedDev is ran by an Evan Solomon, who is the Minister of AI and Innovation. I am not sure if I am getting that exact ministry title correct, but the fact of the matter is that that was a new ministry of government that was launched in either 2024 or 2025 in the Canadian government. And Evan Solomon also runs the Federal Development Agency of Canada. And FedDev is deals with Southern Ontario. There's FedNor for Northern Ontario, and then 5 others, making a total of 7 regional development agencies in Canada, all dealing with smart infrastructure and that sort of a thing. So at the Creative Destruction Lab, you have different facets like Web3 and even something dealing with defense contractors and that sort of a thing. So they are directly linked with the defense industry in and of itself. But looking at the quantum stream here, which deals with quantum computing, optimization, sensing, and that sort of a thing, and brings together other areas as the Creative Destruction Lab have international ties to, well, not only different parts of Canada, but also things like Estonia and that sort of a thing, especially when it comes down to the military-industrial complex. So some aspects of quantum computing or quantum technologies get into genomics and drug discovery, machine learning, quantum sensing, materials discovery, that sort of a thing. So when it comes to materials discovery and also really manufacturing electronics in and of itself, that's where you get to OTI Lumionics, which is in Mississauga. And it is ran by this Michael Hellender, who also is a U of T graduate as well. And OTI Lumionics is part of the quantum stream at the CEL, the Creative Destruction Lab. So OTI Lumionics deal with advanced materials, utilizing quantum simulations and machine learning, and deal with key enabling materials for OLED displays in consumer electronics and automotive and various aspects. So you could see these advanced materials and such that are developed that deal with LED screens can include smartphones and deal with things from VR and AR, as well as sensors and batteries, to things like in vehicles like self-driving cars and even the metaverse, blockchain, that sort of a thing, cloud computing, etc. So very wide range of facets that OTI Lumionics deal with for the products that they manufacture. But now with Peel Police, they partner with IDEMIA. Peel Police partners with IDEMIA, apologies for that. And IDEMIA deal with biometrics and cryptography essentially, as well as like mobile payment solutions and that sort of a thing. And they also partner with the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, which I will get to. So like I mentioned, cryptography and biometrics, and they also partner with various governments and organizations all around the world. So, and of course, dealing with mobile payments for consumer and Internet of Things devices like your phone and mobile identity, it's a digital ID, that sort of a thing. And that's where cryptography comes into play. The blockchain is a cryptographic system, by the way. And then, of course, with biometrics, dealing with face, iris, and fingerprint, and use AI and deep learning to enhance the biometric ID and authentication process. So, NIST biometric activities include face, iris, fingerprint, that sort of a thing. I'm just sort of basically what IDEMIA deals with, NIST also deal with, plus more. And NIST partner, the U.S. NIST partner with the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, that sort of a thing. And NIST's post-quantum cryptography project here deal with quantum computing and various aspects of cryptographic systems as well. And they collaborate with industry and federal partners in this realm. So the ISO and IEC, some international standards organizations that write standards that surround the biodigital convergence. You have the Joint Technical Committee 1, which deals with IT, and then various subcommittees ranging with aspects from cybersecurity, biometrics, cloud computing, Internet of Things, and digital twin, as well as AI. And then Joint Technical Committee 3 deals with quantum technologies, and Technical Committee 307 deals with the blockchain. So this is from the IEC, Quantum Information Technology, cryptographic communications, and big data transmission are two actors that form the basis of commercial transactions, utilizing blockchain technology, of course. And then, of course, the quantum internet is a key ambition for countries all around the world. So all countries are involved in the biodigital convergence. And in some facets, in different parts of the world, they're more developed in some areas of the tech than others, etc. But it doesn't really matter because all countries have standards organizations that are members of ISO, IEC, IEEE, ITU, and other international standards organizations. So Axon Enterprise, formerly known as Taser International, is an American company based in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they develop weapons and tech for military, law enforcement, and civilians. And they also deal with body cams and car dash cams and different kinds of computer software and cloud-based digital evidence platform. So the Peel Police utilize Axon for their body cams, by the way. And as well, Peel Region partners with Axon in the range of virtual reality simulation training. Of course, as you could see these police officers with VR headsets on. And so that's where you get what they call Axon training pods. And then Draft 1 is a piece of software that is utilized that leverages generative AI and body-worn camera audio to produce draft report narratives and doing so faster. So Draft 1 consists of many aspects, as we can see here. And Axon Fusus real-time crime center platform basically helps them respond to incidents in a fast and effective manner, supposedly. And then there's a car video system as well, which is Axon Fleet 3. And then Axon Body 4 can basically provide instant translation for languages, especially if the translator is not available, and that sort of a thing. So now we get to Martin Meyer, who sits on the review committee for the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada, or NSERC, and he works for the Optical Zeitgeist Laboratory, which is part of INRS out in Quebec. So Martin Meyer is about to talk about generation gaps. I just want to say that I look at different generation titles for people like Gen Z or Millennial or whatever. All these things are just illusions, in my opinion, that really just reflect a certain time period for like the music or the movies or the technology that is prominent at the time. And so as a result, you get different kinds of social norms and that sort of a thing. So that's why people are lumped into these generational gaps, if you will. That's just my take. But anyway, Martin Meyer talks about Gen Z in his book and says that Gen Z look at the virtual and physical world as one and the same. And he says that extended reality is the medium that connects avatars in the metaverse and users in the real world. And rather than projecting one's alter ego, it basically projects one's real ego, essentially. And as a result, there have been instances where people in the real world commit crime or show unethical behavior based on their online anonymity in the metaverse. So you can gradually see the digital and physical world emerging in this cyber-physical continuum, if you will. And with that in mind, the term spatial web is not in this presentation, but I talked about what is called the spatial web, which is the merging of physical and digital spaces in a prior delegation where I spoke to the Environmental Action Committee in Mississauga in regards to this. So, with a vast amount of sensors embedded in the real world, what happens is there can be a data sent to update the digital representation in real time, and it becomes possible to track, trace, and analyze events, which then enables one to simulate, predict, and program future actions. Just wanted to show that visual there. And future dual functional wireless networks are supported by integrated sensing and communications technologies, which serve as the foundation of the new air interface for 6G networks that act as the bond to bridge physical and digital worlds, where everything is sensed, connected, and intelligent. So that's more of Martin Meyer's work, a different chapter in his book. And now this is Dr. Francois Collier, the head of the Standards Council of Canada, which is a member of the IEC. So Internet of Things systems are key enablers of smart everything everywhere, and that's where you get into smart payments, smart hospitals, smart society, etc. So the whole point of making this presentation, and also a prior video where I spoke about this guy by the name of Jeremy McKenzie, who runs this organization called Second Sons. The whole point that I'm getting at is that Toronto Police ended up forming something called Task Force Guardian, which essentially is a counterterrorism unit. And they basically were talking about high visibility in like tourist spots and religious places as well. So, and of course, they talk about threats relating to extremism and hate-motivated incidents and that sort of a thing being their reason for creating this Task Force Guardian. And it is what enables the Toronto Police to partner with the OPP, Ontario Provincial Police, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP. So, in a nutshell, it's just basically building a counterterrorism task force of sorts. And my personal opinion on that matter, even though I didn't really say this in the video that I had brought this to attention, is that this is all just about enabling predictive policing in and of itself that much further, and pushing forward technologies like neural network computing and that sort of a thing, which I will get to, utilizing articles from Policy Horizons and the one who runs Policy Horizons is Crystal Vander Elst over here. So in this Sense-Making Futures article, it gets into interactions with online tools and social media platforms entangling people in big data and surveillance systems, and public spaces even have more recording and facial recognition systems, and private spaces increasingly have Internet of Things smart devices of sorts. So people's personal lives are of course open to surveillance that way. And of course, DNA and biometric identifiers are already used by some governments and may someday be keys to accessing certain social and economic benefits. Right. So, and we move in a day and age from AI to ubiquitous computing, which integrates connected microprocessors into everyday objects so that computing is made to appear anytime and everywhere. So that is from Foresight on AI, Policy Considerations, where it talks about neurotechnology increasingly used to read people's thoughts or anticipate their movements in real time. And this could be applied to more ethically fraught contexts like policing, military, or worker surveillance. So neurotechnology and cognitive technologies, this article actually dates back to 2013 from Policy Horizons. So neural network computing basically deals with computer vision and analysis to detect emotions and moods, which may have safety and security applications, and proactive software agents, which discern and predict likely future needs for whoever is being served, and it gets into sorting emails and scheduling meetings and that sort of a thing. Then you get into neural network image recognition, which basically AI can tell that a picture of a cat is a picture of a cat, that sort of a thing. And then you get into emotion tracking, which uses sensors, computer vision, and algorithms to correctly identify likely emotions. And then predictive group sentiment analysis, which is predicting the likely behavior of large groups based off sociometric input variables. And then, of course, predictive crime prevention. So pre-crime uses sociometric sensors coupled with neural network computers to statistically determine the probability of crime. So, all in all, I would say that protests actually fuel these technologies, not only just biometrics in and of itself, but things like neural network computing and ways of profiling people, that sort of a thing, through neural networks. And I am not in agreement with this whatsoever. And this is, again, only one facet of the biodigital convergence. But predictive policing is acknowledged by the Law Commission of Ontario in this article entitled Law Enforcement Use of AI. So I'm going to talk about Palantir a second because the Calgary Police and the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police, have made use of Palantir's Gotham system, and Palantir describes it as a commercially available AI-ready operating system that improves and accelerates decisions for operators across roles and all domains. And as recently as 2022, the OPP had refused to publicly disclose how it uses the program, and the Calgary Police Service claimed it doesn't work for predictive or algorithmic policing, only for social network analysis. It sounds like dishonesty, if I'm honest, right there. And anything that Palantir is involved with having to do with surveillance and picking up data is extremely unethical, not only just for the purposes of profiling people, but in a nutshell, these kinds of things go into one's digital twin, for lack of better words. And if people like Martin Maya, who push for quote-unquote purpose-driven tokens, basically, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that these kinds of things relating to profiling people end up making it so that people cannot obtain their tokens, so to speak, and so that people have a much more difficult time being able to participate in society. So, anyway, the Canadian Department of Justice, Predicting Crime, the Review of Research, talks about the future of crime being the influence of technology on the future of crime, is put into three categories. Advances in technology continue to provide criminals with tools, facilitating the commission of traditional crimes like fraud, theft, money laundering, counterfeiting, and technology itself will be the target of criminal offenses like theft of telecom devices or the spread of computer viruses, and new technology will be used to prevent or deter criminal attack, right? So it says technological innovation, particularly in the convergence of computers, communications, and information, will be an increasingly important facilitator of criminal activity. New technology will allow individuals and small groups to commit crime previously beyond their means while minimizing the risks inherent in offending. Right. I would say that basically all that happens is technology changes, is the land in terms of crime, just the landscape of crime changes. So even in installing different kinds of sociometric sensors, or just taking information from the sensors in general, and different kinds of algorithmic policing methods and neural network computing and these kinds of things don't actually prevent crime whatsoever, and really has no effect on deterring anything as far as I'm concerned. And also, I will say that even if by the Criminal Code of Canada or any statutory any piece of legislation that's been written really anywhere in the world as far as I'm concerned really doesn't mean anything, frankly, because ultimately it's the international standards organizations that design the regulations and standards behind this technology that organizations like Palantir totally facilitate, and even police forces all around the world. So basically, I don't consent to this. I don't consent to the biodigital convergence as a whole, let alone predictive policing in and of itself, because I don't want to live in a world very much like Minority Report. So, thanks everybody for watching, and people can check me out if they want, either on Facebook at Matt Unseated, or people can also look at James Scott, who is the one who literally introduced me to the whole subject of the biodigital convergence in and of itself. And he himself has talked about predictive policing being involved with OC Transpo and their CCTV cameras, for instance. OC Transpo being Ottawa's transit company in and of itself. So, and AI monitors, AI utilizing the cameras, AI in and of itself monitors people's behaviors and tries to pick up information to predict people's behavior. So that kind of system is already installed, and really a lot of these systems are already there, like neural network computing and that sort of a thing. So I would encourage everybody to delegate at the local level, and I am willing to help them with that, as well as James Scott. And we can stop this experiment from moving forward, because ultimately it's not about changing the people's minds who you go delegate to. It's about saying that you know what's going on and that you don't consent to this experiment, that you know how you're being experimented on. Because if somebody doesn't know that they're being experimented on, how can they also say they even consent to it, right? But anyway, that's enough, everyone. Thanks for listening, and take care.